You're listening to Supervision with a Vision, where we discuss all things supervision. I'm your host, Sarah, professional counselor, marriage and family therapist, play therapist, eating disorder specialist, and cookie lover, with my co-host, Heather, marriage and family therapist, certified Together in Texas counselor, a Texas transplant from California, and outdoor adventurer. Hi, welcome to Supervision with a Vision. Today, Heather and I are talking about intimacy and supervision. This week we read Voice of Experience, The Search for Intimacy, published in Counseling Today, 2022. Heather, this sounds like a really spicy topic.
Right. Like I would hope there's not intimacy in your supervision, but I would hope there is.
Or counseling, right.
Right.
So let's first talk about the actual topic of sex within counseling and within supervision. Do you have many supervisees that this has come up with?
Not too many. I mean, I over the time, just maybe some have like double step. Like that was awkward. Like I had an awkward session. This came up. Mm-hmm. But I do have a story about, I was barely licensed. And I had a couple come in and like normally with like marital therapy, it takes a little while before you get to, and they just dove right in first night. Like, hey, we're here. We have intimacy issues. He likes it this way. I like it this way. Oh, okay. Okay, great.
So you were suddenly feeling very intimate with them. They didn't give you time to warm up or get to know them.
Yeah. It was a deep dive very quickly.
How did that end up working out? Was it a good counseling relationship?
It ended up fine.
Yeah.
It was just, I think they had tried other counselors and decided not to like beat around the bush. They're like, this is what we need to focus on. And
they were really ready.
Right.
They knew what they wanted to talk about. I can think, maybe a handful of other clients. I don't know how many times sex has come up with my supervisees, but for the first chunk of my time as a counselor, I only worked with kids.
Okay.
So there was little to no discussion of sex. And when I started to have a few college-age kids, actually, the first thing I thought was, I don't want to work with college-age kids because they're going to want to talk about that.
Right. You're like,
I don't want to talk about that. But the first couple of times it happened, I thought, this is a whole new, this is like another facet of this person.
Right.
Probably the first one that I can remember really talking about sex with was a kid that I'd known for a while that had an eating disorder. And kids with eating disorders typically don't have a lot of hormones. It's just not their...
Right.
It's not their right. So it's not a big concern of theirs. But this kid was taking care of their body pretty well and pretty healthy. And so now it was of interest. And they'd kind of missed some steps in high school because they weren't thinking about it. And now they are. And now they're in college. And I thought, and there's not a parent that's going to get mad at me for talking about that.
I can
You're a college kid. We can talk about this. So it was interesting to think with this kid how they thought about themselves and their body and how they thought about other people's bodies. And I thought it was really productive in treatment for an eating disorder. To have
but it shows another level of success or another level of like, this is where we're at now. I need to discuss these things.
Yeah. Supervisees and sex. Can you think of any time?
I can't. I have one story about a supervisee, and he was really connected with his clients, but it wasn't really exactly sex. But a couple of his clients, and maybe just because he was a guy and it was guy to guy, like they were very interested in talking about masturbation and how much was normal and if they're okay. And these were like, again, older teenagers, or young college kids, but I felt like almost for a while there, he was on a roll. Like every kid that came in to see him was like, I do this or this is, and he got to the point where he could like see it coming. Like he was like, here we go again. They're going to tell me.
Right.
And he's like, came up with like a spiel, like what he would say back.
I feel like would be true for me in any topic. If I felt like, wow, every kid I'm talking to wants to talk about the same thing, I'd have to stop myself and think, am I inviting this somehow?
Why am I making this okay?
Right. Or or maybe I'm drawing this conclusion and they weren't really going there, but
now since I brought it up, I opened the door.
Yeah. How did you talk to that supervisee about that? Or
we just discussed the fact that like being ready is part of not being caught off guard. So obviously if you're going to see young guys, like it's probably going to come up at some point in time. But then also talking about like, how did that conversation open? Was it, I mean, it was always different for him. One guy he swore to him that it was the best stress relief. And while my supervisor was like, okay, but you could also go running, like also do some other thing. If it's becoming a problem where you think you're addicted to masturbation, then maybe there's something else you need to do.
Yeah. Maybe the times where I've discussed this in supervision, I can think of some times in eating disorder treatment where the people in the meeting or in the group weren't specifically my supervisees, but I was leading a multidisciplinary meeting discussion, and the topic was coming up a lot. And what I was doing is kind of what you're saying, that I was saying, okay, well, let's look at that. Is that because we prioritize that, or we're thinking about that, or we're encouraging them to explore that? Or is it because the client is wanting to explore this or think about this, or in some way it relates to their eating disorder uniquely?
Right.
Or is that a lens that we're looking through right now? And I think depending on, I mean, this is our topic, right? That depending on the connection that I have with the people in that meeting, sometimes that goes well and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
That sometimes I am trying to say, well, let's look at it or consider a different perspective or consider that something else is going on. And sometimes people go, okay, fair. Let me see if I think, is that me?
Right.
Or is that the client? And other times it's really faced with a lot of defensiveness.
Right.
No, I'm not doing that. No, that's not important to me. That's what the client is telling me.
Right.
So I think because it's a touchy subject, I think it's touchy to try and confront or address it.
Right.
In supervision or in counseling.
Right. And I think some people are more closed off to it being a discussion where other people don't have the same gate. Is that the right, like other people don't have the same filter for it, and they may not realize that they're putting that out into.
I think you're saying with the client example you gave and then also the supervisee example, it sounds like the more you did talk about it, the more it was open, the easier it was to just address it.
Right.
Which makes me think when I was in my master's program and putting myself through school, I was doing more like social work or case management more than I was counseling. And my caseload was made up of a lot of young 20-somethings.
Right.
All with developmental disabilities.
Okay.
I feel like I had a sex talk once a week.
Right. You're like, it just fell into what needed to happen this week.
But I got used to it. And because I did have a pretty good relationship with all of them. It didn't feel as awkward or uncomfortable.
You become more.
And so I would go, hey, do we need to talk about condoms again?
Right.
Do we, and we could kind of laugh about it. And then I would go, no, really.
Like, do we need to have this conversation?
Can you just say it back to me so I know that you still remember what we talked about last time? But we could say it in a more casual, comfortable way.
Right.
But that sounds like key to the role, our role as a counselor or our role as the supervisor if we're trying to talk about intimacy or sex.
Right. Well, and think about it. It's really a mirror to what intimacy is, that connection that you have with whoever you're dealing with. So it's bigger.
Okay. Perfect segue into our next point.
Okay.
Asking for intimacy within counseling or within the supervision relationship. There are tons of different ways that people are asking for, we said intimacy, but closeness or connectedness.
Right.
How have you experienced that with your supervisees where they're asking you for a deeper level of connectedness?
I think often with supervisees, they're asking for that. And it may be really kind of subverse. Like you may not necessarily see it coming, but when they're asking to say, like, when they're looking for validation that whatever experience they've discussed it, like that's normal. Or if they're even talking about their own life and segueing with personal life, right? Like they're talking about like how they balance work-life stuff. I think they are looking for that connection. It is a way to like, you are connecting at a deeper level because if you're not connecting, then you're probably not doing your job as supervisor. There's a level that you need to be connecting. But I think it's interesting for that to say, I don't know that they know they're asking for it. Like, I don't know if from a supervisee's stance, they're like, I need to connect more with my supervisor. I wonder if they're just more like, I need some validation. I need,
I don't know if I've ever wondered if they meant to or not, if it was just happening. I have supervisees that probably more towards the end of our time in supervision. Like maybe we've known each other for a while and they're getting close to finishing. And they say things like, well, I mean, will we see each other after we're done with supervision? Or they'll say, well, maybe we could get lunch, when.
Like, what now?
Right. In those situations, I guess I've always imagined that they know that they're asking for that they're saying, I don't want to lose you.
Right.
And I think they're also saying, some more than others, I don't want to lose you. And I'd like to feel connection that feels like friendship.
Right. Like more than just supervisee, supervisor, like balancing it out, right? Like more colleague, more.
I do think I also note when that happens, that it is usually kind of towards the end. So I feel like they're also saying, I already feel connected to you in some ways.
Right.
So then I don't want to lose that. And maybe I'd like it to feel even more connected.
Right. Instead of having a disruption, I'd like to have that next step. I don't want to break up with you.
Right. Yeah. I see people do this, but it's with hesitation, or they're nervous, or they don't know how. That maybe something has come up in their counseling that they're providing, or something's happening for them personally that they want to talk about it, but they're also not sure if now's the time. So they're kind of bringing it up. And maybe even, I don't know, I've had supervisees that look kind of tearful.
Right.
I think they're looking to me to give them clues like, is this
right? Am I allowed to go here? Yeah. Yeah.
And you think so too?
I agree.
Supervisees do that?
Yes.
So how do you respond?
I mean, sometimes, again, it depends on the relationship, but sometimes I just give them that encouragement, like, must be really big for you, or like, just kind of ask the question, are you doubting yourself? Like, whatever the context of it is, and kind of just encourage them to go, because that to me usually says, like, there's something more.
Yeah.
There's behind it. I'm not going to be like, no, take that home with you.
What about, like I'm saying, like, let's go to lunch. Would you go to lunch with a supervisee that you're still right in the middle of supervision with? Like, you might know them for,
right,
I don't know, a long time before you would you go to lunch with them?
Yeah, I think I would.
I can't remember.
I don't have a hard and fast rule about it.
Yeah, I think I had someone invite me to, what was it? It felt like a big, not just a birthday, but kind of a big occasion.
Right.
And I think I said no.
Like an anniversary party, or like a wedding, or like
It felt like a little too much for some reason. I'm questioning now, or thinking now, I think my thought process mirrors education. When you're in undergrad, you call your teachers professors.
Right.
And then in your master's program, generally you call them by their last name, or professor,
so-and-so,
something.
Yeah.
But in a doctorate program, a lot of times you call them by their first name. And I still have maybe even one of my favorites where I would catch myself and say, Doctor,
right.
And she would say, my name is not Doctor.
Right.
My name is,
right.
Yeah. So kind of tricky. But I think that way with supervisees, that somewhere along the way you get to a point where it's more familiar, or I mean, no one's calling me doctor.
Right.
In supervision.
Right.
But some other degree of closeness that happens over time.
Exactly. I agree with that. It just continues to develop the longer you have that relationship. Probably the more, and again, that probably mirrors the client relationship, although not probably as deep. But the more you have a client relationship, there's a big difference between a client that I've seen for 6 weeks and a client that's at the 6-month mark.
True. Like with kids that I know, they can tell. There's a point where they realize, because we've known each other for a while, I remember their dog's name.
Right.
I remember their best friend's name. And they're kind of surprised. They go, wow.
Oh, I told you about Luke?
Yeah. Like, I can't believe you remembered whoever, the dog's name. And I'm like, yeah, sure. You told me about him.
Right.
So in that, markers of connectedness. Okay. So what the opposite of feeling connected or asking for connection and closeness would be feeling disconnected or feeling isolation. What are the ways that you notice that happening in supervision, or what are ways that you see it happening in counseling?
I actually have a supervision story about that. I had a supervisee a few years back who worked in a clinic / day treatment kind of facility. And they just didn't have any they were so busy at work They had no connection with anyone else at work. Even though they were in a clinic setting, it was just like fast paced, go, do. And they had no connection with their manager or their work supervisor. And when things would come down that like corporate had changed or something, it was just like black and white. Here's this, it's changed. And they'd be like, well, if that kind of violates privacy, I can't do sessions in the hallway, like, but it would be very much like cut off and dry. And I think that they just felt, even though they were in this big clinic setting, they were
alone.
Totally on their own and felt like they were just failing in every avenue because what a corporation wanted and what they knew to do as a counselor weren't mixing.
Yeah. I'd have to ask my clients if they feel this way or have felt this way. But I've had supervisees that I thought, they are anxious. They are thinking about what they're thinking about or thinking about what they're doing. So they're in their head. And then in session, they're not a real connection with their client. And it's not productive counseling.
I think that's also an indication for a counselor. If you have a client that you've only seen once or twice and they don't come back, there's something off, right?
I think I have felt this with supervisees where I feel like we are not connecting or they don't understand. I think I feel it I do have some supervisees. I actually just signed off paperwork and finished with someone who I never got to see in person.
Oh, yeah.
But I feel it sometimes when my supervisors are online, but also if I'm teaching a class online, it feels really disconnected. And I think I have to work harder and in more specific ways to feel connected.
Right.
If you had a supervisee that you felt really disconnected from, what would you do?
And again, like with the constraints of maybe you're virtual, maybe or whatever. I mean, I think I would try and maybe incorporate a little bit more, maybe just 5 minutes at the beginning or the end of sessions to like kind of connect. Like, no, how was your week? No, I'm not asking about clients. I mean, like, is traffic bad in your area? Yeah, what's your life like? Just to kind of make those gentle steps forward to see if it really is a problem, bigger picture, or if there's other constraints that kind of are just in the way of us connecting.
Yeah. In the past, I had someone who I was meeting in a triad, me and two supervisees, and I felt continually disconnected. And so I started asking them for more individual time versus in a group. Wasn't super receptive.
Yeah.
And so then I wasn't asking, I was saying, okay, now that's what we're going to do. We're going to start doing all of us are going to do more individualized sessions. Also, not a lot, didn't get a lot out of that because they weren't very open to it. Something else I've tried, I think I got a little mileage out of this where this was in person still, felt kind of disconnected. And because of when we were meeting, I started saying, let's bring a snack.
Yeah. Right. Like,
so partly because it was like a time where it makes sense to have a snack, but also that it felt more social, a little more like that we sat down and everybody had like a coffee or a tea and a little snack. And it felt like we were sharing something. And I think that helped some. I don't know that resolves the whole thing completely. But when I'm teaching online, I definitely think FaceTime, like having in person, well, not in person, but at least on video.
Right. Have your video on, be connecting.
If I have a student where I feel like they are not understanding, we're not connected, then I'll say, can we meet through video? And I think that helps some, but still don't think it's the perfect solution. I think it has some to do with me, that I think I'm best in person and that the more time you spend with me, the more connected you can feel. But do I instantly create connectedness? No, I don't think I do.
No, I don't think most counselors do because I think we're also taught not to a little bit because we're taught boundaries. Like, and it's so, especially at the very beginning, think of just finishing school.
Yeah, sure.
Don't be friends with your client. Don't like your client. Yeah. So I think that maybe, especially at the beginning of when you're first a brand new counselor, you are more guarded to those connections.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's so core to this whole topic that people are taught not to share not to share.
Right.
And then even this idea of intimacy, like, so you're going to feel close to someone? That's a big no-no.
Right. I don't think it's a no-no.
No.
I just think there's the right kind of closeness.
Right. And I think like anything else that you learn in the beginning, you learn and you follow all the rules. And you're very specific. So if you're following the rule related to this, then you would intentionally have less connectedness.
Right.
So this is a very advanced skill.
It's very advanced. It take a while to fine tune it.
Well, thanks today for listening to Supervision with a Vision. Heather and I would love to hear about how you create connectedness with your supervisees. You've been listening to Supervision with a Vision. Head on over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Therapy Academy to join the conversation and get show notes. We'll be back next week with more Supervision with a Vision.